My name is Emily Carter, and if there is one thing my family taught me, it is that some people are much better at pretending to be good than actually being good. They know how to cry on cue, how to say the right words when other people are looking, how to play the role of the grieving child or the supportive sibling. But the real person shows up when they think nobody is watching, when the room is quiet, when there is money or power on the table and no one is there to keep them honest. The day my grandfather died, my family turned his house into a stage. They moved through the rooms with red eyes and slow steps. My Aunt Lena clutched a tissue and pressed it dramatically to her chest. My Uncle Mark kept shaking his head and saying, he was the rock of this family, over and over, as if the repetition made it more true. My two cousins, Dylan and Melissa, stood in corners with folded arms, not crying, but occasionally dabbing their eyes whenever someone glanced in their direction. I stayed mostly in the kitchen that day, helping the neighbor reheat food and carry dishes, because that felt like something my grandfather would have wanted. He never liked spectacle. He liked things that worked and people who helped. He was not impressed by noise. He had been the only truly steady person in my life. The only one who took me seriously when I was a shy kid who never spoke above a soft voice. The only one who remembered the little things. The only one who actually listened when I said something hurt me. When I was 8, he fixed my bike and then rode it down the driveway himself, even though he was almost 70, just to prove the brakes were safe. When I was 12, he showed me how to patch a leaky pipe under the sink because he said, you should never have to wait for someone else to protect your home. When I was 16 and my mom forgot to pick me up from school, he drove across town, no complaints, just a soft, you hungry, kid, as if that was the only reasonable next question. So when he died, I did not have a big dramatic reaction in front of everyone. I did not scream or collapse. I helped carry trays and wash dishes and quietly cry in the bathroom with the door locked. The grief felt private. It felt like something that belonged to me and to him, not to the crowded performance happening in the living room. My family read that quiet as weakness. A few days after the funeral, they started holding what they called estate meetings. It sounded official, like they were on some important mission. In reality, it was my aunt inviting my uncle and my cousins to her living room, pouring wine, and talking about Grandpa's house, his savings, and what they believed they deserved. I was never invited. At first, I did not care. I lived in a small apartment across town, had my own job, my own bills. I never expected anything from Grandpa. He had already given me more than anyone else ever had, and none of it had a price tag. It was time, and patience, and small acts of kindness that had shaped me into someone who believed quiet was stronger than noise. But then, slowly, I started to notice things. It began with one sentence, overheard by accident on a Wednesday evening that should have been ordinary. I had gone to my aunt's house to return her casserole dish, because she loved to complain if things were not returned within 3 days. When I pulled into the driveway, I saw the living room lights on and their cars already parked. I almost turned around. I did not want to join their little council. Then I saw the porch light was off. I did not want to leave the dish in the dark, so I walked up quietly, planning to drop it by the door. That was when I heard my aunt's voice through the half-open window. "We are not showing her that letter," she snapped. Honestly, the nerve of him, giving her that kind of power. There was a brief pause, the sound of ice clinking in glasses, then my cousin Melissa's voice. "If she sees it, she will think Grandpa wanted her in charge. She will never let it go." My Uncle Mark added, "Just keep it locked up. Or shred it. The attorney only needs one version. There is no reason for her to know what he wrote." My fingers tightened around the casserole dish. Letter. Attorney. Locked up. Shred it. My heart pounded so hard it almost drowned out their voices. Dylan, my other cousin, laughed lightly. "If we burn it, we never have to hear her say, 'Grandpa wanted it this way.' I am so tired of hearing about what Grandpa wanted." They laughed at that. A mean quiet laugh. The kind people make when they feel clever and safe. I felt my face go cold. I backed away from the window as carefully as I could, placed the dish very gently on the porch, and walked back to my car. My legs felt unsteady, but my mind felt very clear. They were hiding something from me. Something Grandpa's attorney had written. Something my aunt believed would give me power. Something they were willing to burn. I sat behind the steering wheel for a long minute, staring at my own reflection in the windshield, listening to the faint murmur of their voices from the house. I thought about Grandpa's face in the hospital when he squeezed my hand and said, "If they box you out after I am gone, remember, paper does not lie. People do. The law does not care how loud they are." At the time, I did not fully understand what he meant. I thought he was just being poetic and a little dramatic. Now it sounded like a warning. A very exact, very timely warning. I drove home slowly. I did not text them. I did not confront them. I did not barge into their meeting and demand an explanation. I knew how that would go. They would tell me I misunderstood. They would gaslight me until I doubted my own ears. They would insist I was hysterical, overreacting, too emotional. So I did the one thing they never expect from me. I paid attention. I stayed quiet. And I waited a week past. The calls from my aunt were short and strategic. "We are handling everything," she would say. Grandpa wanted us to keep things organized. There was no mention of attorneys, no mention of letters, and definitely no mention of me being involved in anything official. I acted normal. I answered politely. I did not let anything slip that would tell her I knew what she had said at that window. But I watched. My uncle stopped working weekends at his shop and began talking about retiring early. My cousin Dylan suddenly mentioned a down payment on a new truck. Melissa joked about maybe finally renovating her kitchen, because, as she said, Grandpa would want us comfortable. Meanwhile, the one person Grandpa actually spent the most time with, the one he had quietly taught how to fix a leaky pipe and how to read a bank statement, the one he had told more than once, "You have the head for this, was apparently too unimportant to even be told what was happening. Somewhere in all of this, there was a letter from his attorney. And they had hidden it. Locked it up. Maybe burned it. But paper does not lie. People do. One Tuesday morning, I was sitting on my tiny porch drinking coffee before work when my phone rang. The number was one I did not recognize. I almost let it go to voicemail, but some small instinct told me to pick up. "Hello, this is Emily." A calm, older male voice answered. "Miss Carter, my name is David Wynn. I am a notary public who worked with your grandfather's attorney on some of his final documents. Do you have a moment?" My heartbeat stuttered. "Yes, I do." He spoke carefully, like someone who understood the weight of words. "I hope I am not intruding. Your grandfather insisted that I keep a duplicate of a particular letter, one addressed to you and to the family, in case anything happened to the original. I have been waiting for instructions from your family, but no one has contacted me or the attorney. Given the time that has passed, I felt it appropriate to reach out to you directly." My chest tightened so much it was hard to breathe. They had tried to bury the original. They had not considered there might be a backup. I frowned slightly, keeping my voice calm. "A letter addressed to me?" "Yes," he said. "Your grandfather was very clear. It contains his final instructions regarding property, accounts and something about land allocation. He signed it in front of me and the attorney and asked for it to be notarized and copied." I stared out at the small patch of grass in my yard, the world suddenly sharper, more focused. "Why did no one tell me?" I whispered. He hesitated. "I cannot answer that, Miss Carter. But I can say that your grandfather trusted you. He spoke very kindly of you and wanted to ensure you were not excluded. Would you be able to come to my office tomorrow morning so we can review the documents together?" "Yes," I said without hesitation. "Yes, I can." "Good," he replied. "Bring an ID. I will have everything prepared." When I hung up, I set my phone down and leaned back in my chair. The sky above my little rental house looked almost unreal, a bright blue stretched across old telephone wires. I could hear distant traffic, a dog barking, some kid on a bike yelling to his friend. I felt strangely calm. They had hidden the letter. They had lied to my face. They had started dividing a pie they did not own. And Grandpa, who never trusted noise, had quietly left a second copy with a notary, like a chess player who already knew what his opponent would do. I spent that night going through old memories of him. The way he would shake his head every time someone in the family bragged about what they were going to get when he died. The way he would quietly redirect the conversation. The way he once told me, "The loudest people rarely know what they are doing. Do not let volume convince you it is wisdom." I started to understand. He had seen this coming. The next morning, I walked into Mr. Wynn's office wearing simple black slacks and a clean blouse that still smelled a little like laundry soap. I wanted to feel neat, grounded, ready. The office was small, lined with shelves of neat binders and labeled boxes. It smelled like paper and faintly like coffee. He stood when I entered, shook my hand, and offered me a seat across from his desk. His eyes were kind that comes from years of watching people fight over documents. "Thank you for coming," he said. "I know this is a difficult time." I nodded. He opened a locked drawer and removed a large cream envelope, sealed and stamped. He placed it between us. "This is your grandfather's letter. It is notarized, witnessed, and time-stamped. The version we sent to your family's attorney would have been identical." My pulse jumped. "Would you like to read it yourself first, or would you like me to summarize the legal parts as we go?" I cleared my throat. "I will. Read it, and then you can explain the parts one do not understand." "Of course." I broke the seal slowly, almost afraid the paper would disintegrate under my fingers. Inside was a handwritten letter on top, followed by several typed pages. I unfolded the handwritten part first. "My dear Emily, if you are reading this, it means they either dragged their feet or hid the first copy. I am not surprised. I have watched them my whole life. I love them as my blood, but I would be a fool to pretend their greed does not exist. That is why I made sure this letter had a second home with a man I trust. I did not want you pushed aside like you have been so many times before. You have been my quiet anchor for years. You came when I called and stayed when the others were too busy. You never once asked me what I would leave you. That is exactly why I chose to leave you more than they will find fair. You did not earn it with begging. You earned it with presence." The documents attached explain the division. "In short, the house, the surrounding land, and the main savings account are yours. The others receive smaller amounts and items. I know they will not like this. I made my peace with that a long time ago. Do not argue with them. Let the paper speak. The paper does not care about who cries the loudest. I trust you to handle things kindly but firmly. You do not owe them what they never gave me. Love, Grandpa." My eyes blurred as I read that last line. I swallowed hard, pressing my lips together so they would not tremble. My fingers shook, but my mind felt clear, sharper than it had in weeks. He had chosen me. Not because I deserved everything. Not because I was perfect. But because I had shown up in all the small, unglamorous moments no one else cared about. I handed the letter to Mr. Wynne with careful fingers. He read it in silence, nodding slightly, then turned to the typed pages. "Legally," he began, "your grandfather placed the house and the land in a living trust with you as the sole beneficiary and trustee. The primary savings account is also assigned to you. Your aunt, uncle, and cousins have been allocated smaller portions and specific personal items, but they do not share in the property or the main funds. There is also a clause prohibiting them from contesting this without severe penalties." "Penalties?" He pointed to a paragraph. "Here. Any party who engages in fraud, destruction of legal documents, or intentional concealment of estate materials forfeits their rights to their portions." Fraud. Destruction. Concealment. They had tried all three. I exhaled quietly. "So if they hid the original letter, they already walked into the trap he set to protect you," he said gently. I looked up at him, stunned. He planned for this. He smiled sadly. "Your grandfather was not naive. I left that office with a folder containing copies of the trust, the letter, and the legal clauses that put everything in black and white. The sun outside felt different, not warmer, but clearer. Like a film had been peeled off the world. I did not rush home to call them. I did not send photos of the documents in a rage. I did not brag or threaten. I simply went back to my apartment, placed the folder on my table, made myself dinner, and thought. Cold success does not yell. It waits. It did not take long for the cracks to show. 3 days after my meeting with the notary, my aunt called me with a voice that was too sweet. "Emily, honey, we have been meaning to talk about some things regarding the estate. There was a bit of confusion with some paperwork, but everything is under control. No need for you to stress." I stared at the folder on my table while she spoke, the one where my name was written clearly over the property and the accounts that they believed were already theirs. "What kind of confusion?" I asked mildly. "Oh, you know," she said with a light laugh, "just some missing forms, nothing serious. Anyway, your uncle and I have decided to keep the house as a family home. Everyone will have access. It is better that way. Grandpa would have wanted us all to share. Share what they thought they controlled. I let a small silence stretch, then replied, Grandpa said different. She froze. I could hear it in the way her breath hitched. What do you mean? She asked carefully. I traced the edge of the folder with my finger. I mean, he left something in writing that says exactly what he wanted. There was a full second of silence. Then she snapped, Who have you been talking to? I let my voice stay soft. The notary. The one who has a copy. The shift in her tone was instant. Her sweetness vanished. You had no right to go behind our backs, she hissed. We were handling everything. You have complicated this. I almost laughed. I did not complicate anything. I just read what he signed. She tried to recover. Well, then, you know we are supposed to talk these things over as a family. We are a family when it benefits you, I said quietly. Not when it costs you something. You ungrateful girl. After everything we have done. Done what? I asked. Talked about what you were going to take from a man who is not even buried a month. She started yelling again, but I pulled the phone away and calmly ended the call. That night, the messages began. Dylan, you are being selfish. We all have needs. Melissa, you already have your own place. Why do you need the house too? Renee, Grandpa never meant to cut us out. You must have misunderstood the documents. Bring them to us. We will explain. Each time, I read their words and felt less and less affected. Not because I had stopped caring completely, but because I had something stronger than their accusations. I had the paper. The law. His voice in ink. A week later, the official attorney reached out. The notary had contacted him and forwarded the documents. Miss Carter, he said over the phone, we need to schedule a formal reading with all parties present. Your grandfather's instructions were clear, and there appears to have been some interference. Interference. A polite word for what they had done. We set the date for the following Thursday. Meanwhile, my aunt tried to spin a new story. She called extended relatives and told them I had manipulated Grandpa. She whispered that I had taken advantage of an old man. She hinted that I had always been after something. But she had one problem. She did not know what was in the documents. She did not know about the penalty clause. She did not know about the language on concealment. She did not know there was a second copy and a notary ready to speak. I did not correct her version of the story. I did not defend myself to cousins 3 states away. I did not flood the family group chat with pictures of pages. Instead, I let her build whatever narrative made her feel powerful. Because when people are used to lying without consequence, truth hits harder when it finally arrives. On Thursday, I walked into the law office wearing the same calm clothes I had worn to the notary, my hair pulled back, my face neutral. My aunt, uncle, and cousins were already there, sitting together on one side of the conference table like a small army that had not realized their weapons were made of paper and air. Renee glared at me as I walked in. I gave her a small nod and sat on the opposite side. The attorney, a man in his 50s with a measured voice, entered with a thick folder under his arm. He sat at the head of the table, placed the folder down, and looked at each of us in turn. Thank you for coming, he began. I understand there has been some confusion regarding Mr. Carter's final instructions. Hopefully we will clear that up today. My aunt spoke immediately. Yes, there has been confusion. Emily has been going behind our backs and misreading things. Dad would never leave us out. He folded his hands. That is what today is for. He opened the folder, pulled out the notarized letter and the trust documents, and laid them on the table. Before we begin, he said, I should inform you that we discovered an attempt to withhold, and possibly destroy, the original letter sent to this office. Fortunately, a copy was secured by our notary, as per Mr. Carter's instructions. My aunt stiffened. That is ridiculous. No one destroyed anything. The attorney slid a printed email onto the table. The notary provided a timeline and record of his contact attempts. Mr. Carter anticipated this possibility and signed a penalty clause in the event of concealment. Dylan frowned. What penalty clause? The attorney read aloud, any party who intentionally conceals, alters, or destroys estate documentation forfeits all claims to distribution under this trust. They went very quiet very quickly. I watched their faces shift from anger to something closer to fear. The attorney cleared his throat. Let us read the letter. He lifted the handwritten letter and began to read Grandpa's words aloud. I had already read them, but hearing them in that room, with all of them forced to sit and listen, felt different. My dear Emily, if you are reading this with the others present, then my suspicions were correct. They have done something foolish. I hope you are sitting calmly. I know you will want to defend them. Do not. Let the paper do the work. The attorney paused briefly before continuing. I love my children and grandchildren, but I am not blind. I know who visited when I was sick and who did not. I know who called to check on me and who called to ask if I had updated my will. I know who helped me fix the fence and who sent me links to expensive houses they wanted to buy. Emily, you came over with soup, with tools, with your time. You did not ask me what I was leaving you. You asked if I was warm enough. That is the kind of kindness I want this house to remember. I heard my aunt sniff sharply, not from sadness, but from wounded pride. The attorney read on. I have placed my house and the surrounding land in a trust with Emily as the sole beneficiary. She is also the beneficiary of my main savings account. The others will receive what I believe is fair, given their presence in my life. Small sums, personal items, a few things I hope will remind them of better days. Renee slammed her hand lightly on the table. This is insanity. He was not in his right mind. The attorney lifted another paper. Capacity assessment from his physician, taken the week he signed. He was fully lucid, oriented, and aware. My Uncle Mark finally spoke, quietly. What about the penalty clause? The attorney nodded and flipped to another section. Here. He read, in the event that any party attempts to hide, destroy, or delay delivery of this letter, that party and any person knowingly participating in the act shall forfeit their allotted distribution. Their portions will instead be redirected to Emily. Melissa's mouth fell open. That is not legal. It is very legal, the attorney replied. He looked at each of them. We have evidence that the original letter did not reach this office as intended. The notary contacted your family multiple times to request a meeting. His calls were not returned. In combination with statements he recorded at the time of signing, your father clearly anticipated such a scenario and structured the trust accordingly. My aunt's voice shook. He would never take everything from us. The attorney did not soften his tone. He did not take everything. You still have each other. You simply do not have the power you thought you did. Dylan glared at me like I had written the clauses myself. This is what you wanted, right? To make us look like villains. I kept my voice soft. I did not write any of this. I was not even invited to your meetings. He opened his mouth, closed it, then looked away. The attorney continued with the formal language, confirming that the house, the land, and the main savings accounts were now mine, and that any prior assumptions or informal agreements held no legal weight. He reviewed smaller bequests to them, then set a final letter on the table. One more thing, he said. Your father recorded a short video message to accompany these documents. He requested that it be played if there was resistance. He turned a laptop toward us and pressed play. Grandpa appeared on screen, sitting in his worn armchair, looking straight into the camera with those same clear, sharp eyes that had watched all of us for years. If you are watching this, he said, then something went wrong. Maybe you tried to hide the letter. Maybe you fought about what you thought I owed you. Maybe you forgot that none of you were entitled to anything I built. He sighed, rubbed his forehead, and continued. Emily is not taking anything from you. I gave it to her. You did nothing to earn my house. You visited when you wanted money. She visited when I could not get up the stairs. That is the difference. Renee's face went pale. He added, I hope, for your sake, that you do not make her life harder than you already have. If you do, remember this. You will be fighting not just her, but the paper you did not write and the law you cannot bend. The video ended. No one spoke. The attorney finally broke the silence. The estate is settled. The trust is in effect immediately. There is nothing more to discuss in this room. My aunt pushed back her chair so fast it scraped across the floor. This is not over, she muttered, but there was no conviction in her voice. Just a bruised kind of anger. My cousins left without looking at me. My uncle lingered for a moment. He looked at me with tired eyes. He always did see you, he said quietly. I am sorry we did not. I did not know what to say, so I just nodded. Then they were gone. No screaming fit from me. No last word. No dramatic victory lap. They walked out with the weight of their own choices on their shoulders. And I walked out with a folder full of truth I had not asked for, but had been trusted to carry. Outside the law office, the sky looked like it might rain. People moved along the sidewalk with their own troubles, their own errands, completely unaware that, inside that building, a small family war had just ended with a single signature and a second copy of a letter. I stood on the steps for a moment and closed my eyes. I did not feel triumphant. I did not feel like I had won some competition. I did not feel rich or powerful or invincible. I felt steady. Grandpa had done exactly what he said he believed in. He had trusted actions over noise. He had trusted presence over performance. He had trusted paper over promises. And in the end, that quiet trust became my protection. That week, I went to his house with the new keys the attorney had given me. The house looked exactly the same. The porch sagged a little. The paint on the door was chipped. The wind chime he had hung 5 summers ago still clinked softly in the breeze. I stepped inside and felt the familiar smell of old wood and coffee and laundry soap. Every room held a memory. The armchair where he watched the game. The kitchen table where he taught me how to balance a checkbook. The hallway where he bumped his shoulder every time because he refused to admit the frame was too narrow. This was not a prize. It was a responsibility. I walked through slowly, whispering, "I will take care of it, I promise." My phone buzzed with messages from my aunt that I did not open. She had already sent long paragraphs, demanding I sell the house and split the money. She insisted that this was the only way to keep the family from falling apart. She claimed Grandpa would not want us divided. But I remembered the video. I remembered the line where he said, "You are not taking anything from them. I gave it to you." I did not respond to her. I did not argue. I did not explain. I simply blocked her number and sent a single email to the attorney, asking him to forward any necessary communication through his office. Cold silent success is not about punishing someone loudly. It is about refusing to let them drag you back into a fight that the truth has already settled. Months passed. I moved into the house. I fixed the porch with the skills he had taught me. I painted the front door a new soft color. I planted flowers in the garden, the kind he used to point to and say, "Those will outlive us if we let them." Sometimes, in the evenings, I sat on the steps with a mug of tea and listened to the quiet. No shouting. No accusations. No guilt pressing down on my chest. Just the creak of the boards and the sound of the wind in the trees. I heard through distant relatives that my aunt still complained, still told people I had stolen everything, still made herself the victim in a story where she had tried to burn the first copy of the truth. I did not correct her. I did not send the video around. I did not wave the trust in anyone's face. I did not try to convince them that I was good. I already knew who believed me. The man who had signed the papers. The man who had seen them long before they betrayed themselves. The man who had taught me that, in the end, the loudest person in the room is often the most afraid. My revenge was never about watching them crumble. It was about living well in the house they had planned to take from me. It was about paying the property taxes on time. It was about repainting the fence. It was about filling the kitchen with the smell of food and laughter whenever I chose to invite people who actually cared. It was about peace. If you are still listening to me right now, thank you. Thank you for walking through this story with me, through the lies, the letter, the notary, the silent moment when the truth finally surfaced and did not need me to shout for it. If you have not already, make sure you like this video, subscribe, and turn on notifications, because there are many more stories like this, stories where the quiet one finally stands on solid ground while the noisy ones fall apart under their own weight. I would love to have you here for all of them.